Hello all. So very wet and rainy here in California. Rain like we haven't seen in years and years. All the creeks and the streams and the rivers are all overflowing their banks or close to it, causing a mass migration of homeless people out of the creeks and ditches and lowland areas where they've been camping for years. And now they're on the move. And they're not the only ones on the move. Let's go up here and talk about climate change and what's happening and what's going to happen in the future. Okay, one of the problems with climate change is overpopulation. Overpopulation has everything to do with climate change and the future of what's happening. Here in the US, we're seeing migration of all kinds. We're seeing the homeless migrate, and we're also seeing loads of people from Central and South America migrating up to the US. You know why? Because their own countries such as Nicaragua, Honduras, Venezuela, Cuba, and Haiti are all seeing extreme violence in their countries. As the flow of guns goes down through Mexico and through all these different countries, gangs get their hands on all these guns and start to take over the country basically. They're in control of the neighborhoods, in control of the police, in control of the government, and they're demanding ransoms. So these gangs are taking people for ransom and torturing them until they tell them where their family lives and what their addresses are. And then these gangs tell these families they won't see their loved ones again until they pay the ransom. It can be anywhere from $20,000 to $8,000, and then they'll go down a little bit sometimes, but not much. A lot of these families are so desperate to get out of the country because of the gang warfare, endless shootings and violence all night, and their loved ones getting robbed, constantly getting robbed. If they're in a bus, if they're in a car, these robbers will come up and stop your car and steal it, or try to steal it, or at least steal your stuff in your pockets and your phone. So they're desperate to get out of the country, and they're so overpopulated. One starts to go north, and the next one starts to go north, and another, and another, and another. And before you know it, you have whole caravans of people going north, up through Mexico and into the U.S., or try to get into the U.S. This is only going to get worse as climate change gets worse. As the climate gets worse, it'll be harder to grow food, and the desperation for people to move up north or to another country will become ever more and more and more. And the people in the country that they're going to will become ever more hateful of the people that are migrating, even though someday they'll have to migrate as well, probably north to Canada as the heat comes on and it's harder to find food. So the blame game goes on. The hate for the migrants, the hate for the liberals who tell them that the climate is changing and we need to change ourselves, our behavior. But the hate, there's just nothing but hate towards one group of people to another as climate change gets worse and worse and overpopulation gets worse. Harder to find food, the food becomes more expensive, and life keeps going on like this, especially for places like Haiti. It's run purely by the gangs now. There is no government there anymore. And there's a call for the U.S. and other countries to come in and try and take control of the country and get a government in there. But there's so many guns and so much violence. People who call for more and more guns are just egging on the mess we have now, where gun violence is just prevails. Now here in the U.S., a place called Rikers Island in New York, where it's a notorious prison that's run by gangs, and they also run the prison, run the guards, and run the drug trafficking that goes on in the prison, and the violence, the terrible violence. I suggest that you look up Guatemala gangs, Haiti gangs, Venezuela gangs, and see what these people are going through, and then you'll more understand why they're migrating up north, why things have gotten so desperate that they have to leave the gun violence of their own country, the guns that come from the U.S., the horrible gun problem, and it's only getting worse by the politicians who are here in the U.S. and refuse to look at what's really happening in the U.S. with the guns and the gun violence. So, overpopulation, food starvation, and looking for a home out of the floodwaters, just causing more and more migration as years go on, especially here in California, where El Nino will cause more and more migration as flooding becomes more and more a problem. So, any comments on this? Please go look at the videos on these countries. Look up Rikers Island and find out what's going on. Know what's going on, because if you don't know what's going on, it can't help you. It can only help you to know what is really going on. Don't take what the right-wing spin machine tells you. Go look it up for yourself and find out what's really going on with migration, climate change. I appreciate all the comments, the ups, the new subscribers, and until next time.